The morning air is sharp, biting against the window pane, but inside, the kitchen holds a different temperature. It is thick with the heavy, golden aroma of toasted corn and the sharp, earthy bite of slow-simmered spices. Every surface is clean. Every tool is in its place. Sunlight cuts through the steam rising from the back burner, catching dust motes as they drift toward the ceiling. You stand at the center of this space, where the silence is punctuated only by the rhythmic tick of the wall clock and the low, steady hiss of the stove. There is a specific peace in this stillness. It is the quiet before the labor begins. You reach for the first ingredient, feeling the cool weight of the materials under your palms. The counters are waiting. The pots are ready. This is not just a morning routine. It is the opening movement of a process that demands absolute presence. You take a breath, inhaling the depth of the spices, and reach out to begin. The ritual starts now, and every motion from this point forward serves a single, deliberate purpose. The kitchen is ready. Creating a tamale is not a task. It is a commitment. You are not simply preparing a meal. You are engaging in a measured, deliberate act of patience. There is no shortcut here. Every motion you make follows a path carved by generations before you. To rush is to fail. To skip a step is to lose the connection to the history embedded in these ingredients. You treat the masa and the meat with the same gravity as a craftsman treats raw steel or stone. It requires a steady hand and a quiet mind. You must accept that the clock is your partner, not your adversary. As you stand before the workspace, acknowledge the weight of what you are about to build. This is a culinary tradition that demands your full attention. It is a test of your resolve. When you begin to move, you do so with the intent of a guardian preserving something fragile. Your hands become instruments of a long-standing heritage. Each fold and every measure of spice serves the final outcome. The labor is the point. The time you spend is the primary ingredient. Prepare yourself for the work ahead, because you are about to honor a legacy that demands total presence. The journey begins with a humble corn husk. These dried, golden leaves are the foundation of your vessel. Reach for the stack and feel the rigid, brittle texture under your fingertips. They are sharp, dry, and resistant to touch. Bring them to the large container waiting on the counter. Fill it with water. Heat it until it sends thin ribbons of steam into the air. Add a generous pinch of salt to the water, watching the grains dissolve until the liquid is clear once more. Now, submerge the husks. Push them down into the heat, one by one. They will fight the water at first, bobbing against the surface, crackling as the dry fibers meet the liquid. Use your hand to force them under, pressing the stack down until every leaf is completely covered. There is a distinct sound as the air leaves the husks, replaced by the weight of the salted water. They settle into the bottom of the container, anchored by the depth of the pot. Watch as the water swirls around them, beginning the slow process of softening those stiff, golden edges. They are no longer just scraps of dried corn. They are waiting to be transformed into the pliable, soft sheets that will hold your creation together. Time does the work now. Leave the container undisturbed. As the minutes pass, the water pulls the rigidity from the leaves, drawing out the crisp, snapping resistance. Return to the vessel and reach into the warm water. Lift a single leaf. It no longer fights your grip with sharp edges. It drapes over your fingers, supple and obedient. The golden hue remains, but the texture has shifted from paper-thin fragility to a resilient, silken sheet. Run your thumb along the surface. The fibers have relaxed, absorbing the moisture until they are perfectly pliable. This is the first hurdle cleared. You have taken a discarded, dried element and repurposed it into a functional tool. The ease with which you can now fold and manipulate these leaves is a physical confirmation that your preparation is sound. There is no cracking, no snapping, only the smooth give of a material ready to be shaped. Lay a few aside on a clean towel. They are soft, uniform, and prepared to contain the heart of your dish. With this foundation established, your confidence sharpens. The process is moving forward exactly as it must, and you are ready to address the core of the recipe. Turn your attention from the husks to the heavy Dutch oven sitting on the stove. This iron vessel is the hearth of your flavor. Reach for the cut of pork, feeling its dense, cool weight. Place the meat into the center of the pot. It lands with a solid thud against the iron base. Now, reach for the spice rack. Measure out a blend of cracked peppercorns, dried chilies, and toasted cumin. Sprinkle them over the surface until the meat is coated in a dark, fragrant dust. The heat of the stove begins to rise, warming the iron. Pour in the water, letting it hiss as it hits the bottom of the pot, swirling around the base of the roast. The steam begins to rise, carrying the sharp, immediate scent of spices waking up in the heat. Place the lid onto the rim. It seats with a heavy, metallic click, sealing the environment tight. You have created a miniature kiln. Inside, the ingredients are beginning their slow, silent interaction. The initial sizzle fades into a low, steady hum of heat. You have locked the foundation inside, and the long process of transformation has officially begun. The kitchen settles into a rhythm of quiet, persistent heat. Inside the Dutch oven, time performs its necessary work. Without your touch, the intense, stubborn fibers of the roast begin their long retreat. The heat penetrates deep into the muscle, loosening the bonds that once held the structure rigid. You watch the pot, listening for the low, rhythmic simmer. It is a steady, reassuring sound that signals the breakdown is underway. As the minutes bleed into hours, the air in the kitchen changes. The initial sharpness of the raw spices softens, mellowing into a thick, complex aroma that clings to the walls. This is the scent of patience. You lean in, catching the faint, savory steam escaping from the lid. It carries the essence of the meat, now surrendering its density to the liquid. Every bubble that breaks the surface represents a shift in the chemistry of the dish. The foundation is becoming something entirely new. You are not just cooking, you are overseeing a controlled collapse of structure, turning endurance into tenderness. The heat continues to do its work, unhurried and precise, building the depth that will define the final flavor. You step back, allowing the process to remain undisturbed, knowing that every moment of this slow burn is essential to the mastery of the craft. The time has come to reveal the results of your patience. Grip the handle of the lid and lift it away, letting the concentrated steam billow into the light. The kitchen is instantly saturated with a rich, savory heat. Peer into the pot. The meat has retreated from the bone, resting in a deep, dark pool of seasoned broth. Take a sturdy iron fork and press it into the surface of the roast. The resistance is gone. The fibers yield instantly, separating into delicate, uniform ribbons with the slightest pressure. Push the fork through again, and the meat collapses into perfectly tender shreds. This is the moment of confirmation. The spices have traveled deep into every strand, turning the roast into a succulent, uniform mass of flavor. Use a slotted spoon to lift a portion from the liquid, letting the excess broth drip back into the pot. The meat glows with a deep, earthy sheen. It is soft, moist, and ready to be transformed. The sight of it alone triggers an immediate, physical response, a sharp, hollow craving that demands the next step. You have successfully navigated the breakdown. The foundation is complete, and the primary component of your dish now waits in the bowl, perfectly prepared and infused with the essence of the slow, steady heat. Turn back to the heavy pot. The remaining liquid, now a golden, nutrient-dense concentrate of spices and meat drippings, holds the key to the next phase. Carefully strain this broth into a large, wide-rimmed basin. This is not just water. It is the liquid memory of the roast. Now, introduce the corn flour, sifting it slowly into the surface. The flour hits the broth and begins to absorb the fat and flavor immediately. Add the measured portion of lard, a solid white block that will soon disappear into the mix. As you begin to stir, the ingredients collide. The corn flour darkens, drinking in the essence of the broth while the lard begins to soften, coating every granule with richness. You watch the transformation, recognizing the weight and potential in the bowl. This is the soul of the tamale. It is here that the structural integrity of the entire dish is decided. You feel the gravity of the task. Every motion must be deliberate. The mixture is no longer separate parts, but a unified base waiting for its final form. You are building the foundation that will eventually hold the meat, creating a medium that must carry the flavor and support the weight of the tradition you have inherited. Now, the labor begins in earnest. Drive your knuckles into the center of the bowl, pushing the mixture down and outward against the basin walls. The masa resists at first, a heavy, stubborn mass that clings to your palms. Fold the edges back over the center. Press again. The rhythm is slow and steady, a mechanical heartbeat that fills the quiet kitchen. With every push, the lard integrates deeper into the corn flour, and the heat from your hands softens the fat. Focus on the resistance under your skin. Feel the graininess of the corn flour slowly surrender. As you continue to knead, the friction creates a subtle warmth. The clumpy, uneven texture begins to break down, replaced by a smooth, pliable surface. You are not just mixing. You are working air and moisture into every corner. The dough starts to pull away cleanly from the sides of the bowl, leaving nothing behind. Your movements become fluid, matching the consistency you are creating. The masa is becoming a single, cohesive entity, shifting from a collection of parts into a dense, velvety silk. The resistance is gone, replaced by a consistent, springy tension. You press your thumb into the surface. It leaves an impression that holds, firm and smooth. The transformation is complete. Stop for a moment and observe the result of your labor. The masa rests in the basin, a smooth, pale mass that catches the light. It is dense but supple, a perfect balance of moisture and structure. To verify its readiness, take a small marble-sized piece and drop it into a glass of cool water. Watch as it floats to the surface. This is the sign that the dough is aerated and light enough to expand during the steam. Scoop the masa into a ball and hold it in your palm. It does not slump or lose its shape. It holds the imprint of your grip without sticking, revealing a surface that is consistent and uniform. This is the technical achievement you aimed for. Every ingredient has bonded, every spice is evenly distributed, and the fat provides a stable, silky base that will not collapse. You run a spatula along the inner edge of the bowl, lifting the entire mass in one clean motion. There is no residue, no grit, only a unified substance ready for the next stage. You have mastered the base. The kitchen feels different now, quieter, as the preparation shifts from raw components to a ready state. The workspace is clear, the ingredients are waiting, and the masa stands ready as the reliable heart of the final product. Clear the remaining flour from the wooden board. Wipe the surface until it is smooth and dry, creating a clean stage for the final assembly. Arrange your components in a precise line, the basin of masa on the left, the bowl of shredded meat in the center, and the stack of softened husks on the right. Reach into the water container and pull out a single husk. It is heavy, damp, and pliable. Run your fingers along the length of it, feeling the textured veins and the flexible edges. Lay it flat across the board. Smooth out the wrinkles with the palm of your hand, pressing it firmly against the surface to ensure it stays open. Reach for a second husk, overlapping it slightly with the first to create a wider base. The silence in the kitchen deepens. Every movement is now deliberate, stripped of wasted motion. You are no longer preparing ingredients. You are constructing a vessel. The scent of the corn, the deep savory notes of the meat, and the steam rising from the kitchen air seem to converge on this single point. You take a breath, set your stance, and fix your gaze on the center of the husk. The time for labor is over. The time for precision has begun. Take a generous scoop of masa and place it in the center of the husk. Using the back of a spoon, press and drag the dough outward, leaving a clean margin along the edges. The consistency is firm enough to resist, yet soft enough to yield to your pressure. Now, place the shredded meat directly into the center of this bed. Do not overfill. A single break in the husk or a gap in the seal will ruin the integrity of the piece. Fold the long sides of the husk inward, bringing the masa edges together until they meet and lock the meat inside. This is the moment of maximum tension. Press your fingers along the seam to ensure a tight, impenetrable seal. If the masa pushes out, use the tip of your thumb to tuck it back beneath the fold. Once the sides are secure, bring the bottom flap up and tuck it firmly against the back of the bundle. The weight of the meat must be fully cradled. Test the seal by gently tilting the husk. If the filling holds, you have succeeded. Set the finished bundle aside and reach for the next husk. The rhythm is mechanical, repetitive, and absolute. Every fold is a calculated move against gravity and heat, ensuring the heart of the dish remains protected until the final steam. Pick up the first bundle. Hold it with both hands, feeling the weight of the masa and the meat inside. Place it into the steamer pot, standing it upright with the folded edge facing inward. This orientation is essential. It prevents the seal from opening under the pressure of the rising heat. Continue the process, one bundle at a time. Create a tight ring around the base of the pot, then begin the second layer. Each piece must lean against its neighbor, providing support while leaving enough space for the steam to circulate through the stack. The pot grows heavy as the gaps disappear. Do not rush. One misplaced bundle could block the flow and result in uneven cooking. Once the final tamale is set in place, place the lid on top. You hear the heavy metal settle against the rim. Below the grate, the water has reached a rolling boil. A low, rhythmic hiss begins to escape from the edges of the lid. This is the point of no return. The heat is now contained, the structure is locked, and the final, irreversible transformation has begun. The kitchen air shifts, vibrating with the energy of the rising steam. You have built the vessel, and now the fire takes control. The lid vibrates against the rim, a steady, metallic chatter that marks the pulse of the heat. Inside that iron shell, the corn masa begins its slow transition, absorbing the rendered juices of the meat. This is the hour of patience. You do not step away. Instead, you stay close, listening to the rhythmic hiss of the vapor as it forces its way through the tight seal. The air in the kitchen undergoes a physical change. It thickens. First comes the faint, earthy scent of damp corn husks. Then the sharp, savory promise of slow-roasted spices starts to cut through the humidity. Every minute, the aroma grows heavier, more concentrated, filling the corners of the room until the scent of the dish is palpable. You check the flame beneath the pot, adjusting it by the smallest fraction to maintain the perfect, steady pressure. There is no shortcut. If the heat drops, the masa fails to set. If it surges, the contents risk drying out. You watch the clock, pacing the rhythm of the steam. The kitchen has become a pressurized chamber of transformation, and you are the guardian of the process. The heat is doing the work, but your vigilance ensures the outcome. The steamer continues its low, steady hiss, but your attention must now shift. You turn to the secondary burner, clearing space on the counter with a quick, deliberate sweep. The rice requires a different kind of intensity. You grab a heavy pan and set it over a high flame. A splash of oil hits the metal, swirling instantly, thin and shimmering. You measure the rice. The grains are dry, hard, and translucent. You pour them into the pan, and the sound is immediate, a sharp, percussive crackle as the raw starch meets the heat. You do not wait. You grab a wooden spoon and begin the motion, back and forth, side to side. The pan must never stop moving. You watch the color shift, tracking the transformation from pale white to a deep, toasted gold. Every grain needs to be coated. Every edge needs to catch the heat. The scent changes, turning nutty and toasted, cutting through the heavy steam of the tamales. The pace is rapid, demanding, and rhythmic. You are no longer waiting for the transformation. You are forcing it. The grains dance against the steel, glowing brighter with every turn. You have seconds to reach the perfect color before the next step begins. The rice has reached its peak golden hue. Any longer over the flame, and the grains will burn. You reach for the tomato base, the liquid thick and vibrant red. You pour it into the pan, and the reaction is violent. A cloud of steam erupts, hissing as the cold liquid hits the searing oil. You stir instantly, scraping the bottom of the pan to ensure no grain sticks. The tomato base bubbles, turning from a bright liquid into a rich, deep sauce that clings to every kernel. You reduce the heat to a low, steady simmer. This is the race. The tamales require another 20 minutes of consistent steam, and the rice must reach perfect tenderness at that exact moment. You check the steamer lid. It is still chattering. You return to the rice, tilting the pan to check the absorption rate. The liquid is vanishing, leaving behind a fragrant, swelling mass. You cover the pan, trapping the heat to finish the cooking process. The kitchen is now a dual-stage operation, with two distinct rhythms competing for your focus. Every second spent watching the rice is a second away from the steamer. But you do not falter. The grains absorb the color, softening under the lid, waiting for the final assembly. The timer cuts through the kitchen silence. It is time. You approach the steamer, the metal surface slick with condensation. You reach for the handle, but the lid is stubborn, sealed tight by the intense pressure of the steam inside. You grip it firmly, twist, and pull. A heavy, white plume of vapor erupts, curling toward the ceiling and momentarily blinding you. As the air clears, you peer into the pot. The husks are no longer pale and brittle. They have darkened to a rich, earthy gold. You reach in with tongs and lift one out. It is firm to the touch, holding its shape perfectly against the metal grip. You gently press the side. It yields slightly, then springs back, a sign of a perfectly set interior. You rotate it, inspecting the seams. They remain tight, holding the masa and meat securely inside. The scent is unmistakable, a dense, savory blend of corn and spices that confirms the hours of labor have reached their peak. You lift a second one, feeling the substantial weight and the heat radiating through the tongs. They are ready. The texture is exactly as intended, balanced between firm and soft. The tension of the last hour dissolves as you verify the result. The transformation is complete. You move to the counter, the plates waiting in a neat row. With steady hands, You lift the first tamale from the pot and lay it diagonally across the center of the dish. It rests there, substantial and warm. You lift the second, placing it parallel, ensuring the husks overlap slightly to create a clean, intentional line. Now, the rice. You scoop a generous portion, the grains fluffy and stained a deep sunset red from the tomato base. You place it alongside the tamales, using the back of the spoon to sculpt the mound into a perfect curve. The contrast is immediate. The earthy gold of the husks against the vibrant, saturated red of the rice. You pause to inspect the composition. It is balanced. It is complete. You reach for the jar of salsa, the liquid bright and flecked with green herbs. You drizzle it across the top, the sauce catching the light and pooling in the crevices of the husks. The steam rises from the plate in a thin, fragrant wisp. The effort of the day, the hours of preparation, the heat of the kitchen. It all converges into this single, static image of success. You look down at the finished plate, the colors sharp and inviting, and the sense of accomplishment is absolute. You sit, the plate centered before you. The heat continues to rise in a thin, fragrant curl. You reach out, fingers meeting the warm, slightly damp texture of the corn husk. You pull back the top corner, the material resisting just enough before giving way. As you peel it back, a cloud of steam escapes, carrying the concentrated scent of slow-cooked meat and seasoned masa. The interior is perfectly set, the dough holding a firm structure that yields to the slightest pressure. You pick up a fork, the tines sinking into the tender corn casing. You take the first bite. The texture is velvety, smooth, and substantial. Then, the flavors hit. The deep, savory essence of the roast meat blends instantly with the spices you carefully folded into the masa hours ago. It is an immediate, complex explosion of heat, salt, and earthiness. You pause, closing your eyes as the taste settles. The hours of labor, the precision of the kneading, the patience of the slow roast, every step is present in this single moment. It is no longer just food, it is the reward for the work you committed to the craft. The richness coats your palate, and for the first time since the morning began, the kitchen goes still as you savor the result of your discipline. The flavor lingers, a complex map of spices and patience that speaks of generations before you. You put the fork down, the metal clinking softly against the ceramic. There is a deep, resonant quiet in the kitchen now, stripped of the frantic energy of preparation. You look at the remnants on the plate, the discarded husks, the last few grains of rice. You gather the husks, stacking them one by one, feeling the weight of the tradition they carried. This is more than a meal. You have taken a piece of history and kept it alive through your own hands. The exhaustion of the day fades into a steady, grounding peace. You stand, clearing the table with slow, deliberate movements. You leave the kitchen cleaner than you found it. The air still thick with the memory of the spices. As you look back one last time, you recognize that you have not just followed a recipe. You have participated in a continuum of care that stretches far beyond this morning. The work is done, the legacy is secure, and you carry the quiet pride of having honored a craft that demands everything and gives back even more in return.